Hello, for your e-learning today, we are going to be discussing prokaryotic and eukaryotic cells. And right here we have an interactive notebook that we're going to be working on. And we are going to listen to a YouTube video first. So let's go ahead and play that before we get started on our e-learning lesson today.
I'll never forget a circular red spot I developed on my arm when I was in elementary school. It left a lasting memory in my mind because it was something called ringworm. And with my active imagination, I thought I was now infected with a ring-shaped worm. Now, you gotta be careful about names because ringworm isn't caused by a worm at all. It's actually a fungus, which it turns out is pretty common and can be carried by many things like pets or soil. And since up to that point I was used to antibiotics as a way to treat infections, I assumed I'd be given antibiotics, but I wasn't. I was given an antifungal cream instead, and it went away. So it made me wonder, what made it different from the bacteria that had made me sick in the past? Why wasn't I given antibiotics? Well, antibiotics target bacteria. Antibiotics can destroy bacteria by affecting their ability to reproduce, damaging their cell walls, or interfering with their ability to make proteins that they need to survive. Just some examples. But it turns out bacterial cells and fungal cells are very different cell types. In fact, fungal cells have more in common with your cells, which are animal cells, than they have in common with bacterial cells. And that has a lot to do with the comparison of prokaryotic cells with eukaryotic cells, which is what we'll focus on. First, just a refresher, recall that the modern cell theory includes a statement that all living things are made of one or more cells. All living things. In the three domains of life, prokaryotes are organisms that can be bacteria or archaea. They are unicellular, which means they are single-celled organisms. Eukaryotes are organisms that fit all of this last domain, eukarya. Eukaryotes can be protists, plants, animals, or fungi. They can be unicellular, or they can be multicellular, which means they can be made up of many cells, like you. By the way, just to clarify, the word prokaryote is typically used to refer to the organism itself. When you are describing its cell, you are describing a prokaryotic cell. Same for eukaryote. Eukaryote typically refers to the organism itself, and when you are describing its cells, those are eukaryotic cells. Prokaryotic cells and eukaryotic cells do have a lot in common. Both have DNA. That's critical because DNA is the cell's genetic material. Both prokaryotic cells and eukaryotic cells have ribosomes, which are small organelles, an organelle being like a tiny organ. The ribosomes have the important job of making proteins. Gotta make protein. Both cells have cytoplasm, the jelly fluid within cells. Both of them have a cell membrane, also known as a plasma membrane, which is critical because it controls what goes in and out of the cell, and therefore maintaining homeostasis. All cells have a cell membrane. Now, as for cell walls, most prokaryotic cells have cell walls. Many eukaryotic cells, plant cells and fungal cells, for example, can have cell walls. But there are plenty of eukaryotic cells that don't have cell walls, such as animal cells. What makes prokaryotic cells and eukaryotic cells different is especially interesting. Eukaryotic cells are more complex than prokaryotic cells. They tend to be larger than most prokaryotic cells. And to help me remember some more differences in this next part, I like to remember that pro in prokaryote rhymes with no, and u in eukaryote rhymes with do. Prokaryotic cells have no nucleus to contain their DNA, so you will find their DNA is not contained in a nucleus. It's a bit messy here. They have no membrane-bound organelles. Membrane-bound organelles are legacy organelles that have their own membrane, like the nucleus, mitochondria, endoplasmic reticulum, and the Golgi apparatus. A big indicator of eukaryotic cells is this nucleus. Eukaryotic cells do have a nucleus to contain their DNA. Depending on what type of eukaryotic cell it is, it could have different types of membrane-bound organelles. For example, a plant cell is likely to have chloroplasts, while an animal cell would not. Wow, look at all this alphabetized vocabulary. If you want to try to practice your skills, pause the video and see how many of these vocabulary words you can use to compare and contrast prokaryotic cells with eukaryotic cells. It's important to grasp that things fall in one of these two categories. And understanding the characteristics of these two cell types can help us better understand the diversity of living things, whether they are archaea, bacteria, protists, fungi, plants, or animals. And in the case of my example, realizing whether an infection you're dealing with involves prokaryotic cells, such as bacteria, or eukaryotic cells, such as the fungus. Well, that's it for the Amoeba Sisters, and we're back into Stay Curious.
All right, now that we've watched that, let's discuss a little more in detail prokaryotic and eukaryotic. So I want you to just take and type down some notes that you noticed that were in that video that you think might be helpful for you to remember the differences between prokaryotic and eukaryotic cells. Okay? Now here we're going to take and we're going to do a Venn diagram of prokaryotic and eukaryotic cells. We're going to organize the basic characteristics that you can observe in each type of cell. For example, what does the cell look like? You can use the images to decide what it is. So you're going to describe the characteristics that you see here. So let's look here. We have prokaryotic cells. What does it have? It has a nucleus. They both have a nucleus. So you would type right here. They both have a nucleus. Give me at least 3 examples for each one of these. 3 examples that prokaryotic cells have of characteristics, 3 characteristics that they would share, and 3 characteristics that the eukaryotic cells have by itself. Prokaryotic and eukaryotic cells. Now that you know what they are and how they're similar and different, if you can, work with your partner or by yourself and come up with a list of organisms for each cell type. One would be easy to make. The other might take research. So organisms, make a list of organisms. So for example, eukaryotic, we have hippos that are made of eukaryotic cells. What else could be made of eukaryotic cells? Give me 2 other examples. For prokaryotic, we have fungi. Fungi might be made of prokaryotic cells. Give me 2 other examples here. Now we're going to do some drag and drop on the prokaryotic and eukaryotic cells. Okay, we're going to drop them into the right location. Okay, does not have a membrane-bound nucleus. Well, we know pro means no. Okay, so pro means no, and if pro means no, then that means it has no nucleus-bound membrane cells. And we know that eukaryotic, U is do, so we're going to take and move this one over here, like so. You're going to continue to sort the rest out until you have all your answers. All right, for our last look, we're going to read the description and we're going to choose the word that best matches this description. Okay, so DNA that is found in the nucleus, would that be a prokaryotic cell or a eukaryotic cell? Okay, you want to keep doing this until you have all checks on here. Let's say it is a eukaryotic cell. Let's see here what happens. There we go. There's our answer. And you will continue so on and so forth till you are done with that. And our last slide for our e-learning today is going to be, you're going to use 7 of the words to the left to summarize this lesson. So I want you to tell me, using 7 of these words, what this lesson is about. Okay, you need to have at least 5 to 7 sentences. It needs to be in race format. Grace format is where you restate the question, which is you have to summarize it. You assess the question. This is where you take and you take and you tell me all about what you think the cells are and what the lesson's about. Then you take and you cite it. You use a citation. You can go back in some of these slides and use the citation based off of that. And then, of course, you have E, which is where you evaluate or explain how you came to the answer that you came to. If you have any questions, let me know.